Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Who What Now Gaming Podcast for consumers by consumers, where we talk some real nerdy shit. But today, we're doing things a little different. We're spicing things up. And I got to start this one off with a big, massive, flippin' thank you so much to the absolute dynamic duo that is taken over this episode in the absolute best possible way. I am so unbelievably thankful for two of the most amazing humans on this entire planet. I love these two people so unbelievably much. So just to start this one off, a huge, massive thank you to Noah and Tracy Chapman for just absolutely dominating this episode. It is woof. Okay, I'm going to talk about it at the end, so please stay tuned. Enjoy this episode because, damn, it knocked my socks off. Please enjoy.
Well, hello there, Who What Now podcast listeners. This is Noah, who you know from multiple episodes, and I'm here with my beautiful wife, Tracy. She has agreed to do a little side quest episode for Who What Now, and her and I just got back from Disney World. We took our kids on vacation, had a really fun time, and so we decided we wanted to do a little episode here going over some of our favorite movies. We are huge Pixar fans, and so while we were on vacation, we hurriedly and completely took down notes and made our lists, and we're going to compare. I think we're probably going to have some similar ones in our list, but I think we have some slightly different options as well. I kind of split mine into two different categories. I have my top 10 for like nostalgia, and then I do have like a separate top 10 for like respect for the film and like the filmmaking aspect of it. So we kind of go back and forth in my mind between which list means more to me. But I think I'm going to start with my nostalgia list because I think that kind of more aligns with yours. Both. I might. We'll see how it goes here.
I tried to do my top 10 more for how the content, the artistry of it, the story, and then also emotional impact on me, more so than I got caught up a little bit in the nostalgia.
Yeah.
When I was trying to do this ranking, like, oh, but that's so special because of it was the first or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. But I tried to really rein that in and focus more on the movie itself.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. So in other words, where I kind of felt like I had to make two different lists, you kind of took all of that into consideration.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went with my gut a lot. It's hard. This is tough.
Yeah, I know.
I offer very little to the gaming world, so my interests are pretty niche, and Disney is
you're a bit of a gamer. You play the games on your phone.
I get like puzzle games.
Yeah, you're
stuff,
a gamer. Don't sell yourself short.
Well, I just feel like Disney might be the one time I can
we are
on a conversation.
We are Disney lovers for sure.
Yeah.
So okay, well you go first, and we'll
starting
see.
With 10.
Yeah, working up from 10.
Okay, so this one is probably not on everybody's top 10 list, but for me it is. It is Turning Red.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Talk about it.
I know that it was not widely loved at first. I think it has kind of gotten more of a following in the later years, but you don't see, coming from the parks just recently, there's very little Turning Red merchandise, which I was kind of on the hunt for. Did find some like plushes and things like that, but I just don't think it's a hugely popular Pixar movie. But for me, it takes place in the year 2002, and the main character, Mei Mei, has just turned 13. And in 2002, I turned 13 as well. So that whole era that's in that movie with Tamagotchi and boy bands and friendship groups and charm bracelets and all sorts of, fun fashion type stuff that they talk about in that movie. And that is really fun for me. But also the storyline with parental relationships and wanting to please your parents, especially a mother-daughter relationship, being really important and kind of like a central part of the story was also really, really big for me as well, being close to my own mother. So yeah, so overall I just I thought the storyline was really beautiful. And I love the animation. It was kind of different for Pixar, a little bit more like had some anime inspiration.
Totally.
Also kind of had like Wallace and Gromit kind of aspect to it as well, with like their big faces.
Yeah, almost like the frame rate was slightly different sometimes with some of the like facial features and stuff. It's almost like, it was a little bit more almost like stopgap, like you said, like Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and their
I
facial
totally
features
see that.
were kind of like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just I loved the soundtrack's also really cool. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, I really love that movie as well. It's not on my top 10, but I do think they really captured the time period really well. And I think that it was Pixar telling a story that really needed to be told. And I think it was really fun. I love the comment right at the end of the movie where she says something to the effect of, sometimes we're afraid to let the most hidden parts of ourselves out. We're afraid what people will think. I did. And I turned out fine. What about you? And just leaving the audience with that question, leaving those little girls with that question. So good. That's part of what makes Pixar so amazing to me in general, is that you can tell they're always trying to put good into the world when they make these films. And so that was a really good example.
Yeah.
All right, my number 10 is Monsters, Inc., which I think... I just find that the early Pixar films in general all rank pretty high for me. I just think that they were so groundbreaking in what they did and how they spoke to things, and just the styling of it. It's number 10 for me because I do think of the early films, it's probably the one that has aged the worst, in my mind at least. But you can't deny, you can't deny the story, and just how classic it is of a tale. I think I play into it the fact that it has a sequel that is so well tied to it. Pixar is one of the best when it comes to sequels, and this is one of the great examples. The sequel isn't on my top 10, but just the fact that it has a story that they were able to make a sequel so well to it, I think that earns it some respect in my mind, at least.
That's one of the times they did a prequel, actually.
Oh, yes, you're right. It's a prequel.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. It's truly a prequel. So I really love just the story. I love the system that they created. Like, as a D&D guy and a fantasy reader, magic systems and stuff are always interesting to me. And the whole premise that, scaring people creates their power, and that's the only reason they do it. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to be scary to children, but they have to because that's how they live. Like, such a cool premise. And how the movie turns out is so great. So that's number 10 for me. I really love it.
Yeah, it's a good one. Number 9. So this one's interesting. It's Cars for me. I will say, and no one will attest to this, I said for the longest time that I did not understand the Cars kind of phenomenon that happened when it first came out. And then, it's all over again, the parks and the merchandise. It's very, very popular. I always just thought, I watched it once when it first came out, and I just kind of thought, okay, it's a little weird, talking cars. They have tongues and teeth, and it was just kind of odd to me, and I just thought, not one of my favorites. But fast forward, however many years ago that came out, we had a child who, our son, who is 4 years old, Sam, he fell in love with Cars and Lightning McQueen specifically. And we have watched that movie now hundreds of times, I feel like. And the first, second, third, fourth time that I watched it through with Sam, I started rethinking my opinion on it. I still, found the animation, the fact that cars have tongues and teeth and they live in America, and there's we talked about, there's little Easter eggs in some of the sequels where they have a pope. There's a pope car. So do they have Christianity in cars? You can go all down these rabbit holes with it. But ultimately, I just find Lightning's arc in the film to be really sweet. And, he starts off as this egotistical, kind of pompous race car driver and meets these small town cars, and the whole cast of cars in Radiator Springs, they're all so great. Mm-hmm. They all have their own little catchlines, phrases. We each have our own favorite little side character. We quote that movie a ton. Mm-hmm. What's my favorite Tomater quote that you do?
It's the when he's talking about the little car that Munch knew this car, Doreen. She looked just like a Jaguar, except she was a truck. Man, I used to crash into her just so I could spoke to her.
He'll just slide that into conversation sometimes, makes me laugh. Yeah. And then we also do the old lady car, whose name is escaping me right now, but she's always got those one-liners. Yeah. Big Al died 40 years ago. Why'd you bring him up, you lemon? So that's a big quotable movie for us. Also, really cool music that we, jam out to in the car with the kids. Again, it's really the storylines really get me in the most with Disney movies in general, but specifically Pixar movies, I feel are for kids on the outside, but really there's adult theming in it as well that you can relate to your inner child, and then as you become an adult, it takes on new meaning for you. So that is my number 9.
Yeah. I'll talk about cars in a little bit.
Yeah.
Number 9 for me is Inside Out. One of the newer films. Tracy and I both have our careers are in, the service field, if you will. I work as a nurse. Tracy worked, now she's a stay-at-home mom, but she worked as a teacher for several years before that. And so the mental health of children and just the population in general has always been a big thing for us. And as two people who have mental health struggles of our own, seeing that brought to the main stage and talked about and broken down in a way that can really be approachable to kids means a lot to us. And when this film came out, it left both of us just in tears by the end of it. The beauty of how it talks about emotion and how the full spectrum of emotion is so important, especially how it focuses on how sadness is such an important thing to embrace in your life, not try to constantly push away. Was such an important word for society in general, I think. And as two people who have dealt with a lot of grief in our life, learning to embrace our grief and to let it become part of what forms us and informs us going forward, it just spoke to so many things that we as two adults have gone through. And it just to be able to know that type of messaging is going to go out to kids. We play that movie for our kids all the time because we find the messaging so vital and so important. So,
yep.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that one later.
All right. What's number 8 for you?
So I would say that this 4 through 8 of this list threw me for a loop a little bit. I feel like I could have switched things around. I still, I just, like I said in the beginning, I went with my gut on this just to not overthink it, as I tend to do with most things in life. Number 8 for me is WALL-E.
Number 8 for me is WALL-E.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, perfect. That works out.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
No, you first. Yeah.
WALL-E again. Saw that in the theater when it came out. Most of these I saw in the theater when they first were released. But Wally saw it in the movie theater, really enjoyed it. Especially with like the space where it takes place in space, seeing it on the big screen, it really kind of like grips you, and it's all kind of encompassing with the score and all of that. But again, did not revisit that movie until becoming a parent. And again, that was another one. Sam, just briefly, we'll touch on the fact that Sam has autism, our son that we talked about earlier. He is verbal, but limited verbally, and so he'll just kind of say one word sentences to us that we have learned to either translate, or it's specific enough that we know what he's talking about. And I was going through Disney Plus one day, not that long ago, maybe a year or so ago, and he was into robots at the time, and he saw Wall-E, and he just said robots, and so I put it on, and he was absolutely glued to the screen for that entire movie. And I got a second chance to sit down and actually watch it through, and again, just that movie is so special. Again, kind of different for Pixar, different for Disney. Not a lot of dialogue, especially in the first part of the film. It's like a silent film. Not a silent film. Like a silent film.
Almost.
Yeah. Where it's the music kind of takes you through it. Wally's eyes are the expression of them. Wall-E is just one of the most adorable characters in Pixar history, in my opinion. And I love that it has a love story in it with Eve. And then, you're introduced, and then second half of the movie, you get onto the Axiom, the spaceship where humans have been for the last 700 so years since the planet was overtaken by trash. Kind of topical as well throughout the years, just with climate change.
It feels plausible to me.
Yeah.
Like so many future movies, you're like, you can really get lost in willing to suspension of disbelief. Like, this is never going to happen. But Wall-E, it feels like a plausible future.
Yeah. Based
on how society has gone, based on corporate culture, all these things, it feels like something that could actually happen. In some ways, and I find that really fascinating. That part of it, because I think that's what really gets me into the movie. Is just it feels like, oh yeah, damn, this could really happen.
Yeah, for sure. There's a little bit of there's part of you, especially as an adult when you're watching it. There's a little bit, because it is kind of not so far out of the scope of reality. You are a little bit like, ooh, this is kind of scary.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
This, maybe it won't happen in our lifetime, but I mean, who knows with how things are these days. So the second half of the movie with the humans also adds an interesting spin on things. And it's just, again, the score. I've said that. I'm going to say that for every movie.
Wall-E to me is such an artful film, especially the first half. And then some of the things that happen on the ship as well. The artistry, the visuals on that film, and just the art of telling a story without a lot of words, and make it just as compelling, just as easy, and captivating. I think it is one of the best technically that they have ever done. Which, when you talk about that other list that I talk about, Wall-E ranks even higher than it does here for me, because I do think it is one of the best outings that Pixar has ever done on a technical storytelling, just full package kind of scale. It's one of the best they've ever done, for sure.
And that's what's interesting about Wall-E is the director of that is Andrew Stanton, who also directed several other Pixar movies that might be on my list, but he's also known for, which came first was Finding Nemo.
Yes, which is another one that is.
So we'll talk about that one, I'm sure.
Yep. That's definitely up on the list.
But so just linking the directors within Pixar too, which with the movies they've done and kind of similar. similar emotional impact.
That's more than I know for sure, but
Yeah.
I know, we could talk about Nemo when we get there, but
Yeah.
all right. What is your number 7?
Well, it is Monsters, Inc.
Hey.
So I agree with what you said. Just briefly, for me, again, it's the creativity of the story. You grow up hearing about monsters under your bed, monsters in the closet, and then, like you said, the fact that it's their job, it's not really their main desire to scare kids. It's just what they have to do for their energy system. And then also the added little thing, too, that kids are, in fact, toxic. Or they think the kids are toxic to them. They're scared of kids.
Yeah.
Is also really funny.
Yeah.
Which then you end up obviously learning that kids are not toxic.
It's interesting to me that it feels like maybe at these Monsters Inc. is one of Pixar's earlier films.
Yeah.
Was it their second full-length feature after?
Pretty sure, yeah.
After Toy Story, and if
Yeah.
you think about the premise, we'll get to Toy Story, but just on a basic sense, the premise of Toy Story is our toys come to life when we're not looking.
Yeah.
And then Monsters Inc. is the monsters are hiding
Monsters,
under your
yeah.
bed or in your closet. It's interesting because it seems like they were maybe going for those kind of, let's talk about these tropes of children's imaginations.
Yeah.
And make movies about them. And they did such a damn good job with that. So
smart.
So great.
So smart. I do agree with you about the animation in terms of it not aging as well as like, say, Toy Story, which was made before it. Although they've done some
It's
some
possible
remastering.
that they have done, maybe Toy Story has been prioritized for remastering more than Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. There might be reasons for that, but
that does not, I think, for why it's a little higher for me on the list is because the animation, the lacking in the animation department doesn't really take away for me as much as I think it does for you.
Yeah. And I get that.
It stands out to you more than it does to me.
Yeah.
Which is totally fair. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my number 7.
7 for me is Coco. Another newer one. Again, I think Coco probably is one of the best visually that Pixar has done in their more modern films here. Some of those first scenes with those banners up in the sky and stuff, it's like, is that not real?
Yeah.
It's something. They almost had to like back down a little bit from what they could do. Almost, you could tell, to make it still be like a Pixar film.
Yeah.
But the story of that film, the work that went into respecting the culture that they were taking from, while also making it approachable to kids and to families, that don't know it. Just taking that and making it part of that mission to educate, while also telling a story that's so heartfelt and so just really hits to your core. Some darker tones for sure, but in the end, the story, again, that's one that'll leave me in tears almost every time. So I think just with the visuals, with the art of the cultural storytelling, and then just what they share, just how important family is, but on both sides of that, kind of the importance of being yourself, but also loving family, and how those can work in harmony, and that individuality does not mean that you have to sacrifice community and family as well. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it's just such a wonderful story, and I know that we're not at all speaking. It's one of their most popular latest outings, so it definitely spoke to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I do love that movie.
Right. Me too. It's funny because you're listing movies that are a little higher on my list than they are for you. So, and in turn, I am listing movies that are probably, starting now, probably higher up for you. So this is like one of your favorites, if not your number 1. I don't know.
Yeah.
But my number 6 is Ratatouille.
Yeah.
And I know that's a big one for you. So I'm sure you'll have more to
Save
add.
that for me to, Yeah.
to add to, but I'll just say, for me, Ratatouille, there's 2 or 3 scenes that really kind of like sold this movie for me as like one of the best that they've done. And that is when there's a scene where Remy goes to Linguini's apartment, and it's not very nice. It's not the cleanest or the biggest, but they pan up to the window and it's a beautiful view of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
And again, that encompassing moment where like Remy is taking in the view of Paris, having been to Paris ourselves on our honeymoon, you can kind of relate to that feeling of like seeing this skyline that you've grown up seeing in pictures and in movies, and it is very grand and all encompassing. And so that kind of, they get you with those shots and the music along with it.
Yeah.
And then the other scene that sticks out to me is, of course, when Ego, the food critic, tastes Remy's ratatouille towards the end of the film, and they pan into his mind, takes him immediately back to his childhood and a dish that his mother made for him. And that, again, I just got little goosies talking about it. Is just, I mean, such a, being a human is so, you think that you have like, and people do have their own individual stories that make you who you are, but being human is also such a universal experience that we all can relate to that, something taking you back to being a child. And
the way they visually represented it,
and it just
stunning.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's
absolutely stunning.
For sure. And that's one of the most beautiful moments in film, I think, ever, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, I mean, that alone has it in my top 10. And then I just have other films that I love a little bit more, that it's not higher on my list, but that's
there's that
nostalgia,
but I will, I'll get to Ratatouille here shortly. For me, we reach, going into number 6, correct? Yes,
Yep.
Number 6 is Cars. So we talked about Cars a good bit. All the things that Tracy said, totally agree. Cars came out right. I was a little old for it, but the story was so good, and my little brothers and sisters loved this movie, so we watched it all the time. Absolute amazing storytelling on the part of Pixar. What a classic trope that they did. Again, paying respects to an area. Route 66, you could tell that there's some motivations there, some passion, part of the people that made they research, they look at things. It's just, and another big thing is some of the music done for Cars, I think is some of the best ever done. Some of these songs that were made for Cars, I think, are my favorite performances for those artists.
Yeah.
Things like Sheryl Crow in that first song. It's so good.
I didn't know that was written for Cars.
Yeah, because it got some radio time outside of the movie, which is not always common. But it did.
And then the cover of Life is a Highway.
Life is a Highway cover is very famous to this day. It's almost the go-to version of that. It is the go-to version of that song now, and that comes from that film. And then some of James Taylor's work on that film is some of my favorite. Wouldn't say it's my favorite songs that he's ever done, but probably in top 3. That Our Town. If you haven't listened to that, just on its own, you should. It's very, very good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that really plays into it for me. Big nostalgia here. Brings me back to being, a early teen with my siblings and watching that, and it was a bonding experience there. So for all those reasons, it ranks where it does for me. Really love Cars.
Yeah. Into the top 5.
Did you do 6?
I did. It was Ratatouille.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, into the top 5.
Into the top 5. Number 5 for me is Up.
Ooh, very good.
I feel like I'm getting to talk about these movies, these like really big Pixar movies, before you get a chance to talk about them.
We're getting close, so I'll talk about Up here.
Okay. Up. Man, what is there to say about Up? So much.
Yeah.
Again, the first 10 minutes of that movie
Yeah.
with Carl and Ellie's story is, again, that could be a standalone film on its own. Still, again, getting goosebumps thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
The married life, which is the very famous score song from that movie. You know, I'm not going to hum it right now because I don't have any musical skills, but you know it. And if you don't and you look it up, you'll be reminded.
You'll be like, oh, yep. It's a TikTok sound for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That whole 10 minutes is beautiful.
Devastating.
And devastating. Utterly devastating. And especially if you've dealt with fertility issues. As we struggled with fertility, we struggled getting pregnant, had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence is just, so relatable to so many people. And then, you see them go through the rest of their lives, and we were so lucky and fortunate to be able to have children in the end. But that's not Carl and Ellie's story.
Yeah.
And to see the love and joy that they found with each other and within their relationship and overcoming, such a difficult thing in their lives, which can bring some marriages to their knees.
Yeah, for sure.
Is just beautiful. So that's the first 10 minutes. And then you have this transformation of Carl into this old curmudgeon.
Yeah.
Who is but you still have seen that little hint of him as a young man, and know that's in there somewhere, but you can relate to that grief aspect of it where you just feel like things will never be the same again when you've lost someone.
Yeah.
And then you get the introduction of the side characters like Russell, who is incredible.
Oh my goodness. So adorable.
Kevin, the bird.
Yeah.
Which he walks around Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, we got to see Kevin.
And he's walking around in that park is just like, so surreal, because he looks just like
They got him.
They got him so good.
It's perfect. It is Kevin.
The puppetry there at the parks with Kevin is like top notch. But that's aside. That's a rabbit hole. That's a bunny trail or whatever.
Oh, but stunning.
And then, without a doubt, one of my top favorite characters in a Pixar movie of all time is Doug.
Doug. Oh my God.
I have just met you and I love you.
Yeah.
If that is not your image of a dog in talking form, everyone can relate to that. The squirrel.
Yeah.
Just again, the human experience is can be really universal at times, and that love of a dog and love for your dog is a big part of that movie as well. And then again, dark themes in Up.
Yeah.
We talked about fertility. Murder, like the villain of that movie. He's
a straight up killer.
Yeah, he's a killer.
Yeah.
So it's just overall just really, and also beautiful visuals. Again, the color story in that film is stunning with the pastels and
oh my goodness, yes.
And then the bright colors and then there's a scene towards the end. Where Russell gets dragged across the windshield of the plane, and you're seeing it from, I can't think of his name, Charles Munch's eyes, just kind of panning, and it's just so clever the way that the way that they portray these moments.
And then even the sound work on that one, that it just sounds so perfect. And
no
everything.
Music, just squeaking. Yeah. Anyway, I could just go on and on about Up. It's so good.
Up is number 3 for me. I'll just say it right now.
Okay.
And what puts Up so high up for me is I love an arc. I love seeing a character go from one state that is not great and find their purpose and find what brings them back to their true self. Because you can see at the beginning of that film that Carl was a happy, joyous, lovely man. And when he lost his wife, he lost his joy. And he became obsessed with keeping her and her memory and all these things. And it led him down this path where instead of that being something that helped bring him back to joy and help him move on and live, it kept him stagnant and made him grumpy and sad and bitter. And at the end of that, towards the end, the final big conflict where if he doesn't do something drastic, he's going to lose Russell. And when his whole world shifts in that moment, and suddenly none of the stuff in that house matters, nothing else, and he throws it all out, and he throws it out, and he throws it out until he can fly that house up and rescue Russell. And then he has to let the entire house go, and he does it without even a thought or a care or any grief, because he's a changed man. He's found his purpose, and it is others, and it is that little boy, and it is Doug, and it all those things. And man, that is to a movie to be able to facilitate and walk you through that type of journey, so that when it happens, it's believable, it feels right, it's at the right time. That is so hard to do. So many movies try to do that and they fail, and you're like, I don't know this guy well enough to even care. Up, you know who Carl is.
Yeah.
And you've seen what he's gone through, and you understand when he makes that shift.
Right.
And it's done at the perfect time, in the perfect way. It is spectacular, spectacular work on a storytelling level. And that is what puts it where it does for me. It is one of the best stories ever told in that type of format, I think, full stop. And it's just stunning.
To just kind of piggyback off that grief aspect of Up, just really quickly, I'll talk about that more when I mention it comes up in my top three. But just that keeping Ellie's spirit alive to him is keeping all of the physical items that reminds him of her, the books and the furniture. And I think he also, in addition to realizing that stuff, that there's a greater purpose for him now, and being able to get rid of that, I think there's also something in him that realizes that stuff will continue to live on within him and within his memories.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to hold on to it physically anymore. And I can relate to that, having experienced grief in my life, where for a long time I felt like I had to save everything that my mom ever touched, ever wrote on, ever looked at.
Yeah.
And I still do have like some special items, handful, but I've really learned over the years that stuff just doesn't, there is sentimental value to it, of course, but you can't always hold on to that forever. And I think that was a really beautiful visual representation of that baggage, not to make that sound like a negative thing.
Yeah.
But the weight of grief that can sometimes sit on you.
Oh, yeah.
Literally is lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that final sequence where you see that the house has landed on Paradise Falls.
Yeah.
Forevermore to be where Carl and Ellie dreamed of it being.
Yeah.
Is just, top notch.
And when he shows up and gives Russell the Ellie badge at the end.
The highest honor I can bestow.
Oh my God.
Ellie
I'm
badge.
going to cry if we don't move on.
All right,
So,
let's move on.
so
Well,
that was
that
five.
was my number 5. That's your number 3, so you have to do your number 5 still.
My number 5 is my only sequel in my entire list, and that is Toy Story 2.
Okay.
Toy Story 2 is the best sequel to any film ever made, period, full stop. I don't care what you think. I'm sorry. If you disagree, feel free to sound off if you have a different opinion. Nowhere in the history of film, in my mind, has a sequel ever been done better than in Toy Story 2. It has been done well many times, but never better than Toy Story 2. To create an adventure that is just as compelling as the first, possibly even more so. To focus your story so that it's clear who your main guy is, Woody. And I love Buzz, I love everybody. This is Woody's story, the Toy Story, especially the main trilogy. It's Woody's story. Even the fourth one. To just bring in new characters that are as much classic and loved and beloved as the originals from the first film. Again, possibly even more so. To provide backstory to your character, to basically make the first film better by what you tell in the second one. It is just It's a clinic in how to make a sequel. And it is so well done. The music is so good. The voice acting, never has there been better voice assigned to characters than Buzz and Woody. Unbelievable. And the amount of heart that they put into those. I think specifically of Buzz, how he is playing two different versions of Buzz for so much of the film, does so well. Tim Allen, like it's just stunning work, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this kind of leads us into actually my next ranking, because my number 4 is Toy Story 2.
Look at that.
And I think this is where I was kind of talking about at the beginning of the podcast, where there might be some kind of maybe some odd choices in people's minds in my list, because Toy Story 2 is on my list, but Toy Story the original is not in my top 10, which seems
Wrong,
bizarre. I know, I struggled with that a lot, because I felt like I did not want to have Toy Story and Toy Story 2 in my top 10, because there were other characters that I felt like deserved spotlight, since I'm talking about Toy Story 2, which I find to be a superior film to Toy Story.
And you're not alone in that.
Yeah. I love Toy Story. That is the beginning of Pixar. It's the beginning of the beautiful story of Woody and Buzz and company. I love it. And it's,
you love the Toy Story 11. Universe, but your favorite is...
It's number 11 on my list. I love it. But Toy Story 2, for me, talking about sequels, one of the best sequels, the best sequel ever done, is that what you find in a lot of sequels today, in recent years especially, is that it just follows the same formula as the first movie.
Yeah.
It's, especially with action movies, where it's just shoot.
Yeah.
It's the same storyline, just different characters.
For sure.
Beyond the main character. Even in non-action movies, I feel like sequels, although not many.
Book sequels can be that way as well.
Yeah.
It's just in entertainment in general.
Yeah.
It can be hard to do a good sequel.
And this, Toy Story 2 is just, it could be a standalone film.
Yep.
It doesn't rely on the innovation that we saw in Toy Story. It creates its own new, interesting things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could start Toy Story 2 without having watched Toy Story 1, and they set enough context clues for you to understand that, it would almost start similarly to how Toy Story starts, where you're just kind of thrown into it and, hey, this is the world that exists.
Yeah.
You can kind of do the same thing with Toy Story 2 and be just fine.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
So that's also that's a huge, you miss some of the context, but you don't have to have it to enjoy that film.
Yeah.
Another thing that makes a sequel a great sequel.
And I loved that in Toy Story 2, you get to know some of the side characters a little bit more, because they all, Buzz and Ham and Potato Head and Rex and Slinky, all go on their separate adventure to save Woody, and then you get Woody and Jessie, Prospector and Bullseye on the other part of the story. Again, I am a sucker for side characters. Bullseye, again. I have all the plushes of the side characters, and Bullseye is
the animals.
The animals get me, man.
Yeah.
And Bullseye, again, those eyes just kill you. He's not a non-speaking character, but those eyes, you know exactly how he's thinking and feeling. Love the story. Again, just a brilliant, genius backstory for Woody.
Yep.
So good with the TV show.
Spectacular.
And amazingly creative. Jessie, boss, goddess, magical, bitch, babe, whatever the kids say,
bitch.
Boss ass bitch, whatever the kids say, goddess of moon and earth and sun, whatever. All those things. She's great.
Yeah.
And then Prospector's twist into being the bad guy, who I would argue Prospector is one of the most evil villains in the Pixar universe, because there's that moment at the end where he is gonna pickaxe Woody into pieces, and he's just is.
We go to the museum together or in pieces. Something like that. He says, unreal, dark.
Yeah, very dark. He's willing to.
But the thing that you get it, you know why he explains why he is the way he is, and it makes unbelievably perfect sense. And that is what makes a good villain.
Yeah.
You have to be able to understand where the villain's coming from. And I totally get why Stinky Pete feels the way he does and does what he does. And why, in his mind, he would see them as being bad.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. Makes it so good. I love Stinky Pete so much.
Yeah, me calling him Prospector.
I love a good.
Spectre.
Well, he's both. He's the Spectre. Say hello to the Prospector.
It's a box. He's been in the box.
Never
been opened.
Oh, we're such nerds.
Yeah, so Toy Story 2 just is, and then again, there's always a scene in each Pixar movie that stands out to me visually, artistically, and that is the scene in Toy Story 2 when Woody is getting redone by that toy.
Oh my God.
That toy fixer.
Yep.
Toy maker.
One of the best sequences in film.
Yeah. And when especially when he paints the bottom of Woody's foot, Woody's boot, to cover Andy's name, and it's just that one single stroke.
And you know the sound design behind that?
Yeah. It's like ASMR.
To be perfect. Oh my God.
Yeah, so good. And then that is Jerry, the toy maker guy is Jerry from one of the early Pixar shorts.
Exactly.
Started the Easter eggs in Pixar movies.
Exactly.
Toy just so good. I will also say, just touch on this briefly, I also love Toy Story 3. Yeah. I thought that was a beautiful, years and years later from Toy Story 2, again, creative story.
Yep.
Kind of bringing Woody's journey with Andy full circle. You never could picture Woody leaving Andy, but they make it seem,
one of the best ends to a trilogy. One of the best done.
And then I just pretend that Toy Story 4 never happened.
Yeah, Toy Story 4 is fan fiction to me.
But that could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I don't see that as being the way. I feel like it goes against Woody's whole shtick.
Yeah.
That he has held strong to.
Stick with your kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Toy Story 2, again, so good.
Yeah.
Number 4 for me.
Number 4 for me.
Yeah.
Is Finding Nemo.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah.
One of the big boys in Pixar. One of the ones that was, I think this took the longest for them to ever develop.
Yeah.
And my goodness, the feeling of when, watching that movie as a father to a son, you get it. That's all I could tell you, is that it encapsulates what it means to love a child in such a intensely palpable and just perfect way for me. It gets me every time. And I just love a movie that is showing how beautiful a father-son relationship can be. Like a father-son when the son is young, and so many father-son relationships in film are when they're adults and like maybe reconciling or connecting, but to show that no, there is such thing as healthy, lovely, loving relationships while your son is a child, and that's what you want to pursue. And yes, Marlon has to learn how to be more open and free and less protective, but it never questions his love. The movie never asks Marlon to change how he feels about his son and how much he wants to protect him. It's just how he protects him that changes, not his desire to. None of that ever changes. It doesn't ask him to change that because it shouldn't. And it is just stunning, obviously groundbreaking with the water effects, how natural it looks, how the sound with how they move. Again, some of the best characters. I know Ellen has been not necessarily shown.
She has not aged well.
She's not aged well in some ways. Could argue that there are people who've done much worse in Hollywood than her, but still, again, one of the best castings for a character in animation, full stop.
Yeah.
And her commitment and drive for that character, which moved on to that sequel that they made, another fantastic sequel in Finding Dory, another thing that boosts this movie for me. So just a fantastic character, and simply just a stunning film.
Yeah, agreed. Number 3.
Number 3.
We've talked about this one already, but my number 3 is Coco.
Yeah.
I agree again with everything that you said. I will add my own kind of experience of the movie. With you talked a lot about with Coco. You talked about community and not giving up your individuality to still be accepted in your family or within your friend group or whatever community you surround yourself with, and that is definitely a crucial aspect of that movie. And I love that spoke to you. And I get why that aspect spoke to you as well. For me, it is maybe not the main focus of the movie until maybe towards the end, but again, I've talked about this already in other movies, is grief. I lost my mother when I was 20 years old. It'll be 15 years ago this month to cancer, a long battle with cancer. And so when you have a loved one that has such a long journey to death, you can think a lot about, it makes you think a lot about life and life experiences and things like that. And then now being 15 years post Phyllis, my mom, again, also have learned a lot about life and life experiences. And Coco really, there's a scene at the end where after Miguel has returned to the land of the living. And he sings Remember Me with Coco. And they kind of do a fade out and it's a year later. And Miguel's grandmother is putting Coco's picture on the ofrenda for the Day of the Dead celebration that following year. Because she has since passed. Again, obviously everyone has that initial reaction like, oh, so sad that Coco's gone.
But then and I had that reaction too. I was like, oh no, Coco. Okay. So then goes on a little bit. He starts singing that song. I can't think of the name of it. Mi Corazón. So that song is gorgeous. Also, the songwriters in Coco are also the songwriters from Frozen. So a lot of beautiful, awesome, amazing songs from Coco. Amazing.
Including that's my favorite. The ending song there in that sequence.
Agree.
So you see then Miguel's family in the land of the dead crossing over the bridge, holding hands, including Coco, to come visit the family in the land of the living. And he's singing, and his grandmother is looking so proud of him. And around, you see Coco in her, skeletal form with her arm around her daughter. And you get the sense in the movie that Abuela, Miguel's Abuela, loves her mother deeply. Like you can tell that just the thought, she knows that her death is imminent and she's already grieving her. She's already sad. So to see Coco, with her mind not fully there for most of the movie, to then see Coco in her true form, recognizing that her daughter is grieving her and putting that arm around her. I absolutely lost my mind the first time we watched that movie, which was not in the theater. We watched it at home. We both
broke down.
We broke down,
Broke down at that.
Just stunning. Just absolutely stunning. And so relatable for so many people. Even if you've never experienced like deep loss like that, or like loss of a parent, loss of a spouse, loss of a child, you can relate to that, the idea of it. You've thought about it. You've thought about losing those people. And that, just the thought is enough to make you want to throw up.
Or, someone who has gone through it.
Exactly.
And to be able to just...
The empathy.
It just...
So that just, again, there's these big scenes, these moments in these movies that's a theme in my top 10 that just...
These are not just kids movies, guys. That's the thing. They're not.
Man, I just got swept up in that. That moment is just gorgeous.
Is it number 1 now? Are you switching now?
Never mind. It's number 1 through 10. Just Coco. All right, so you're
already talked about my number 3. We talked about Up.
Right.
So what is your number 3?
Oh, number 2 now.
Oh, number 2.
So we just talked about it. Finding Nemo is my number 2.
Okay, and you spoke...
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think if there was something... Oh, again, I just want to talk about my scene from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
I just feel like, let's just be honest. That's my shtick here.
Yeah.
That's what we've realized about me is there's a scene in every movie. And it goes along with your idea of a parent's love for their child.
Yeah.
And also I'm a very protective parent. Sometimes overly so, sometimes to the point of maybe holding back my children at times, which I'm working on and have gotten a little better at. I can be
all in the process and the journey of motherhood.
Yeah.
I would never say that you've made mistakes in that way.
Well, thank you. That's very
Anyways,
good.
continue.
So, Dory is talking to Marlin in the whale's mouth.
Yeah.
And Marlin thinks at this point that they're gonna be eaten by the whale and he's never gonna get to Nemo. And Marlin says, "I swore I would never let anything happen to him." And Dory says, "Well, that's a silly thing to promise," or something like that.
Yeah.
You can't never let anything happen to him because then nothing will ever happen to him.
Yeah.
And that just hits you. You're like, you can't hold your kids back. They have to experience sadness. They have to experience hardship. They have to experience all these negative life things that you want to protect them from.
Yeah.
To form, who their true self is meant to be.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is I just want my kids to be happy. I don't want them to be sad.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be mad. I don't want them to be scared. I want them to just be happy all the time. And that's just not realistic. And that's something that I have to work through. But Dory, that quote sticks in my mind a lot with parenting.
Oh my goodness.
Then nothing will ever happen to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want
One
that
of my
either.
favorite quotes is when he asks Crush, "How do you know when they're ready?"
Oh, yeah.
And he just goes, "Well, you don't really know." Something to the effect of, "You don't really know
When they
until
know,
they know. When they know,
you know.
you know." And I was just like, yeah, it totally made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There was no, I was like, yeah, I know. So
Yeah, that's just my little addition to the Finding Nemo chat we had earlier.
absolutely stunning. Let's see. Number 2 for me is Ratatouille. Ratatouille is number 2 on my nostalgia list, and it's number 1 on my technical list. Ratatouille, I won't be questioned on this. I truly believe Ratatouille is the best Pixar has ever done, period. I don't think that it will ever be outdone. I do think that, yes, there's some nostalgic moments story-wise that maybe other films hit a little deeper for some and for others, even me, as I grow. But as far as mixing story, visuals, sound design, culture, all of these things, it's just spectacular. It is visually one of the best they've ever done. That sequence towards the beginning where Remy is crawling through the walls and there's all these little moments and things that happen. I mean, stunning work. When I first watched this movie as a kid in my grandmother's living room, the scene where he discovers that he can control him with the hair, and just how unbelievably hilarious it all goes down. And then finding out that the voice of Linguini ended up being one of the animators, because he just knew how to put voice to those movements that they were doing. Just made so much sense. I remember I had not laughed that hard as a child ever at a movie. And so that's a huge memory for me. And I just love the depth of the storytelling. That scene with the critic at the end, absolutely just one of the best visualizations of that experience of when you taste or smell something, it taking you back. One of the best visual representations of what we've all felt at one point or another. And it is just art. That movie is an art film in my mind. And I know it's like, they're talking rats. What in the hell are you talking about? I'm telling you, it's an art film more than anything for me.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by it.
Yeah. Well, again, that choice to rats in the kitchen obviously are like, that's
Exactly.
a no-no. So they could have picked, they didn't pick a dog to be a chef. They picked a rat.
Exactly.
To that whole, to just that clever stuff that
That's how you create classic, and even like taking the risk of doing that when Mickey Mouse is Mickey Mouse is the Disney character.
Yeah.
So to create a talking rat.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that some people thought that they didn't like that. They thought, but I mean, Remy the rat is one of the most classic Pixar characters now.
Yeah.
Ever
has
made.
A whole ride.
Yeah, he has an entire ride at the parks. One of the biggest festival that they do at one of the biggest parks in Disney World. He is the mascot of. Like it is. He has. They nailed it. It was a risk. They took it, and it paid off.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Did I do my number 2? Yeah, Finding Nemo. Yeah, so we're at number 1.
We're at number 1.
So number 1 for me is Inside Out.
I love that.
Yeah. We talked about Inside Out a little earlier.
Yeah.
I just kind of listened and will agree again. We're very in tune with, our opinions are very kind of in sync.
It's like we're married or something.
I know. It's like we like each other. So I, again, echo everything you said. Personal experience for Inside Out is, you talked about sadness in your experience, and for me it's anger.
Yeah.
I grew up, I go to anger a lot in emotion, whether it's like, if I'm impassioned about a topic, it could come off as kind of, there's that anger type response.
She's a spicy girl.
I'm spicy, yeah. Feisty, like our daughter is also feisty. She gets it from her mom. And maybe a little neurospicy. TBD. So I relate to the anger aspect, but just overall those core emotions that they talk about. And joy is just so, at the beginning, her journey again is just so much about suppressing those other emotions to have joy be at the forefront, which is so much of what's expected of children.
Yeah.
And then because of that expectation as a child, it then creates this kind of, it creates adults then that do not know how to handle emotions that are natural in a healthy way. As you grow up. And I can totally relate to that as a child. I very much was told that my anger was a problem, not appropriate. You can't be angry. You need to be happy. You need to smile. All that stuff kind of happened, and that just made me angrier inside. And so I've had to really reckon with my anger as an adult because I didn't learn how to process my emotions. I love my parents, love my mom. Obviously very close with my mother especially, and I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. I feel like that's the generation of parents, boomer parents. They were also taught to suppress their emotions. That's what they knew. So I'm not.
Oh, and like even some religious tones. That can be not that is all bad, but sometimes I think the focus on finding joy in those faith environments can sometimes inadvertently lead to these types of suppressing of other emotions.
Yeah, to be this perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Christ-like.
Exactly.
Person, yeah, and you can't. Right. So, and then her journey, it was sadness. I love sadness as well. Totally relate to the sad. I'm a sad girl. Sad girl club. What is that? Saddies be baddies. I relate to that. Anyway, cringe. I'm such a millennial.
No, you're not. Well, you are, but
yeah, factually.
Be what you are.
And
own it.
Literally, a millennial. Relate to the sadness aspect as well, but joy realizes that these emotions can exist together. So it's not either or. It's both. And so you can feel joy and sadness in the same moment. And that's just like so huge. I've done a lot of work with my mental health. And that idea that two things can exist at the same time and not be less valid. Like I can be angry, but I can also, express that in a healthy way. I don't have to not be angry. I have to learn how to express that in a more appropriate manner.
Well, like we even talked about the other day, that idea of sometimes you have to do what is self-protective or what's healthy for you, even if you know it might hurt somebody you love.
Yeah.
And knowing that those two things are true. And you can feel that kind of conflicting, I know I'm doing what's right for me in this moment, but I can also feel sadness or some guilt that I know that it might also hurt them.
Yeah.
But I know it's still what I have to do for myself. And I think that all goes back to that mixing of those emotions, that no, two things can coincide in the same fact.
Yeah.
And that doesn't diminish one or the other. They're both there and they're both valid. And I think that movie tells that story in such a way that is so approachable and honestly great for adults.
I was just gonna say.
And children.
Right. That's the beauty of Pixar. It's just that, like you said, approachable is a great word. It's kids can get it.
Yeah.
Kids can understand that. But it's also like, whoa.
Yeah.
As an adult, you're like,
Yeah.
dang, that's so true.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's just, it will always have a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
And then to touch on the sequel, Inside Out 2,
Yeah.
also really enjoyed. Not their best sequel work, but that's the scene. But there's a scene in Inside Out 2
Yeah.
that sticks out to me, which is anxiety.
Yeah.
Having when Riley is having her
The
panic
visual
attack.
representation of an anxiety
When
attack
she's just absolutely going.
is one of the is spectacular.
Yeah. And again, that you're like, oh, there's other people that have felt that way.
Yeah.
And they're putting it on screen.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
Yeah.
So cool. So anyway, that's my top 10.
Yeah.
So what's your number one?
Number one, no surprise, Toy Story, the first, the OG, and what set everything into motion with this studio, with the idea of telling stories that are funny, that are unique, that are visually really, really cool and amazing, but that also touch at important moments and important ideas. The idea of a character arc, the move from enemies to best friends of Woody and Buzz, one of the best ever done. The fact that they went from hating each other to being willing to literally die for each other by the end of that movie, and it felt natural. Absolutely stunning. Some the best storytelling ever. It's my childhood touchstone film. It is everything to me. And that scene of Buzz trying to fly in Sid's house with the music from Randy Newman and falling, it is one of the most beautiful scenes in film to me. And I am not the only one that thinks that. I did not originate that thought. It has been spoken, but I agree with it 100%. It is one of the best, the build up to that scene, what happens, and we know what's going to happen. We know he can't fly, but for him to, how important it was for him to experience that, even though it's so sad for him to finally break him out of the thinking he's something he's not, is and how devastating that is, while also being so vital for him to embrace a new truth. So amazing.
So good.
So good.
And then also so funny.
Just so funny.
Yeah.
The performances are just hilarious.
Yeah.
Woody and Buzz, unbelievably funny as a comic duo. One-liners endlessly through that film.
What's one that sticks out to you?
I am Mrs. Nesbit.
What's the other? I like Mr. Lightbeer.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
other words I can't say because there's children's toys around.
It's called Toys R Us.
Yeah. So it's
Really
just endless. I was back where kids' films could still be a little irreverent, which I missed that. I missed that so much. And I love that it's still there.
Idiots and moron.
Yeah, exactly. Yep,
They don't
exactly.
do that really anymore.
No, they don't. Which I get it, but I'm also like,
People are idiots.
yeah, exactly. So just stunning. What it meant for the studio as a whole, and what it did for Disney, I think just puts it in a league of its own.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. again, Toy Story didn't make my top 10. And I know that seems kind of like counterproductive because there wouldn't be a top 10 without Toy Story. But so yeah, that's maybe there's some regret there. It's not in my top 10, but
I
it
think
is what it is.
you give respect to Toy Story
Yeah,
in this list.
I'm gonna think about this a lot.
Don't be influenced by me.
You're an influencer, content creator.
No, I'm not. I'm not. So, anyways, that's our list, and we went way longer than I thought we were supposed to go.
Well, you didn't even do our honorable mentions.
No, we didn't even do our honorable mentions. We'll have to save those.
Yeah.
Well, just one word, just one honorable mention.
Elemental.
Good one. Onward. Fight Me. It's a good movie. All right. Thank you for sitting and listening to us. I hope you enjoy this. I really hope that those of you that listen are willing to tell us what you think down in the comments and over on the Discord, because I would love to have more conversation about these things. So thanks so much. Thank you, Tracy, for talking with me.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you around, guys. Bye.
Stop the music. Hold up. Back it up. I said I'd be back, and I'm going to talk about it. Oh, man, that was an amazing episode. I literally listened to the entire thing while editing this portion. I just listened to the entire thing again. This is now my third time fully listening through again, and I've loved it every single time. And so I was just going to leave it, but I have to put my own little input in here because this was so amazing. Let's start off things, okay? Number one, saddies are baddies. Stick with that, okay? Here is my list. I'm looking at number 5 place, okay, is Inside Out 1 and 2. And this is only because I think that Inside Out 1 and 2 really does depict a really good job with like the inner turmoils inside of our own minds, dealing with emotions and thought processes and puberty in general and just becoming a human being. I think it nails it. It's definitely on. It was 5 and 6 on my list. I couldn't decide, so I was like, we'll just put them both at number 5. Number 4, I put it with Turning Red. I have to agree with Tracy. This is a fantastic movie, especially when it comes to just like the idea of just becoming yourself without losing the the remnants of tradition and who you who you are and who you or where you came from and such. So that was definitely number 4 on my list. Number 3 I had was Onward. Dude, Noah nailed it. Fight me on it. It's a fantastic movie, but I think really diving deep into the idea of being able to let something go, but still being able to grow from it and becoming a better person for it, and pulling in like special relationships and such. It's a fantastic movie. Number 2 is Coco. I mean, come on. I definitely, while making this list, I definitely learned that I am super, super into, becoming your own person, be who you want to be. And as long as who you are makes you smile, you've nailed it. Well done. And my number 1 pick, wasn't even mentioned, I don't think, or maybe, oh, maybe I'll have to do another listen through, is Brave. I mean, because it's everything. Becoming who you are, learning yourself, not forgetting where you came from, embracing what you are going to be. And with the final thoughts of, if you could change your fate, would ya? Thanks for sticking around. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your week. And we'll catch you on the next one. Cue up the music.